everyone. Today's construction day 151.
All right, so guess where we were today? Yes, Wilma and I took a trip down Dumaguete City to immigration. So a couple things went on today. So we want to take the time and explain everything about your Balikbayan visa, call it marriage visa. And the reason why we want to talk about that specifically is, most of our viewers, and I've said it many times, are just like Wilma and I, married, either here in the Philippines or in their home country, think about retiring here in the Philippines. So that is the majority of our viewership, or at least that email me and communicate back and forth through comments. So we want to take the time and talk through some of the immigration stuff. So it may be helpful to you guys. So number one, when you arrive here with your Filipina spouse, so I'm specifically talking about guys like me who is married to a Filipina. When you arrive in the Philippines and you go to immigration, you just have to ask them that you want your passport stamped with a Balikbayan visa. It's free of charge. You get stamped right there at immigration, and your visa is good for 1 year from the point that it gets stamped, from the date of arrival. And they will ask you for your marriage certificate. So you might have been married in the Philippines before, or maybe married in your home country. Like Wilma and I, we were married in the United States. So that matters, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So you just present your marriage certificate, and they will stamp your visa, my passport, with a visa called Balikbayan. It's good for 1 year. Now you can extend that. So now you're good for 1 year. You can extend that up to 3 years at 6 months at a time. Now you can also do it 1 month at a time. So when your year is up, you have to go back to immigration and just tell them that you have your Balikbayan visa and they're going to want to see it. You have to fill out a form, and you can extend it for 1 month or 6 months. So of course, when we were at Leyte, we extended it for 6 months. So now we're up against that. So we went down today and said we want to extend it again for another 6 months. So 1 year, 6 months, 6 months. So that puts me at 2 years. And then I can do it 2 more times to get to the 3-year mark. And then at that point, you would have to have your permanent visa, which I'll get to in a minute, or you would have to leave the country and then come back, and then you would start over again with that Balikbayan visa. So I'm not talking about tourist visas. And there is a ton of content on YouTube about tourist visas. Because remember I said like that 90-10 rule, 90% of the guys that come here are single, 10% are married. So I'm talking to the 10%, people like Wilma and myself. So that is the Balikbayan visa process. Very, very simple. First year is free. The next 4 times, 6 months times 4, you can extend, and your passport's good to go. So also, it's about 10,000 pesos per 6-month extension. So you have to consider that as well. It's 10,000 pesos. So now, at the same time, right next to immigration in downtown Dumaguete City is a company called JRC Services. So now things get interesting. I want to apply for the spousal visa. It's a permanent visa, so then I don't have to go and worry about all these fees and every 6 months have to extend off the Balikbayan visa. It's called 13A spousal visa. So again, if you're married to a Filipina, you're in your home country, that's the visa I would think that you would want to pursue. So it's complicated, very complicated. So I asked Wilma to stop me. I'm probably going to make some mistakes here when I explain it. I have no notes. You guys know I don't usually have notes at all. And if I do have notes, I tell you that I do. But here I go. So you can do the process of the 13A visa by yourself. And we could do that. But it's a process. So what I'm going to try to do is explain the difference between doing it yourself and then just hiring a service. So JRC, the company JRC, Express I believe is the name of the company, is they provide, or they do all the heavy lifting for you. And I've watched many videos out there on YouTube about JRC, and everyone has said they're fantastic to work with, and we got our first experience with that. So we walked in there today, and they basically said, here's what you need to do. And they never once said how much it costs or anything like that. They were just giving us advice, basically telling us how to do it on our own. And Wilma and I looked at each other and said, we don't want to do all that. It was a lot of work. So I said, can you do this service for us? Yes, sir. So let's try to go over some of the fees too. So I'm going to be a little sporadic here. For us to do it ourselves, with all the fees, it's 17,000 pesos. Now that's approximate, that's what they told us. 17,000 pesos. So you could divide that by 55, and I'll tell you the US dollars. So we're going to pay the 17,000 no matter what. So if we use their services, they pay those fees. So the total fee is 37,000 pesos. So 37,000 minus 17 is 20. So they get 20,000 pesos. Again, divide that by 55, and that'll tell you how much they charge. So things went very quick once I said, no, I don't want to do everything that I have to do myself. So the first thing we have to do is, we were married in the U.S., so the Philippines doesn't recognize our marriage. So that's the first step. So the first step we would have to do is we'd either have to travel back to the U.S. and go to the Philippine embassy and basically register our marriage. Or I could have a family member, so I could, look up my sister and say, drive down to the nearest Philippine embassy, which is in Manhattan, New York. We've been there several times. And with our marriage certificate, and basically, I'm sure there's a form to fill out, and then the Philippine embassy would verify that that marriage certificate from the U.S. is valid. And then once it's valid, they fill out a form, or I guess you get a certificate back with a seal on it, an original from the Philippine embassy in the U.S. saying, yes, this is a valid marriage, because I guess there's forgeries out there. Then my sister would have to go back down to, and you're hearing this, Gwen, I know you didn't want to do this, and I don't blame you. She would have to go down, pick up the original, and send me the original. Now that's going to take time. Or the service, they handle it for you. They have a third-party company that they deal with. We gave them a copy of our marriage certificate this morning. They already scanned it to the company. They did it right in front of us. We signed the document, and that service is 10,000 pesos or $200. So they do that work. So it's already to that company in the United States. They will represent us as we signed a document saying that they could do this service. They go to the Philippine embassy. They have now a copy of our marriage certificate. They get it certified after the Philippine embassy does their due diligence. They pick up the original, and they send the original to JRC. It'll come to them, the original, in the mail. So, that takes 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 30 days to get here. Because I doubt they're going to do express. They're going to do regular mail. So that's step one. So we went ahead and paid that fee, 10,000 pesos. That's done, and that's on top of the 37,000. And now that's done, and then now we'll get that certificate soon, and that's step one. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
All right. So now,
10 more steps,
yeah, it's like 10 more steps.
which we don't need to do because we're paying him to do all that.
Right.
It's just too much of a hassle for us to do it.
Right.
Because too many legwork.
Too much legwork. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you need to know somebody from Insider too.
Right. So, and then you got to stand in line and all that stuff. So, the next step is you got to fill out a bunch of forms. So, the fact that we were married in the U.S. And the Philippines doesn't recognize that, there's a form that you have to fill out, and you have to get 2 people to sign it, which means Wilma and I would have to find 2 people that is not a relative of us, has to be a friend or an acquaintance, go with us to our attorney and do an affidavit that, yes, our marriage is valid. And how would they know that? We've only been here 6 months. But anyway, that's the process. So JRC does that for us. There's 2 there in the office. They looked over the paperwork and they signed that for us. So that's done. And then they take it to their attorney, and that's part of the service, so I don't have to pay for the attorney. And the attorney will look over the documents and sign everything. That needs to be done. Next step is Wilma and I would have to go to Cebu, which is 5 or 6 hours away, and be interviewed. They would ask us questions. How long have you known one another, and give me a quality that what you like about your spouse, and she has to do the same thing. So it's a face-to-face interview that Wilma and I would have to do. We don't have to do that. So we don't have to go to Cebu right now to do that. So we did it by document. So we filled out the document at JRC, and it was pretty simple to do. It was 1 page. We signed it, and that goes in front of the magistrate as well. So we got that done. So that's 1 trip to Cebu that we don't have to do. Then, so far, so good?
So far, so good.
All right. So then you need 5 copies of the application, and the application is pretty thorough. So we would have to have filled those out. Wilma would have to do 5 copies. I would have to do 5 copies because she has to petition me. So they did that for us. They typed in all the information, passport information, marriage information, my parents' information, and when they were born, where were they born, same thing with Wilma. And all we had to do was sign those documents. They took care of that. What else the steps was? Going for the fingerprints.
The NBI.
The NBI, yeah.
Yeah, we had to renew the NBI.
Yeah, so I did an NBI, which is the same thing as FBI in the U.S. Basically background, make sure that I'm not a felon. That has to be, it's good for 1 year. I did it 8 months ago in Leyte, so there's only 4 months left on that NBI clearance. So to actually apply for the 13A visa, it has to be valid for 6 months. So I have to renew my NBI clearance. So if we did it ourselves, we'd have to go home. We have to apply online. It's about a 2 to 3 week waiting period to get an appointment, get an appointment number, and a date. You go there, you get in line, you get in queue, and you have to get fingerprinted. I have to get fingerprinted, pay a fee, and then wait about 30 days to get my new updated NBI clearance. With JRC Services, they went online right away. Since they have a connection, they got an appointment in 15 minutes. So they said, sir, you'll go with one of our representatives. They will take you down to NBI right now.
Yes.
So I wasn't ready for that. So I said, okay, sounds good. So we jumped in a trike. Took 5 minutes to the trike ride down, right? There was 57 people in line. You have to get there, you have to sign in, and you have to sit in the queue. It takes about 5 minutes per person because you have to get fingerprinted. So just say 60 times 5 is 300. 300 divided by 60 is what, 5 hours? So we were going to be there like 5 hours. Since we use JRC services, you just walk past those 57 people. You go right to the front. I was sat down in front of the person to take my fingerprints in 30 seconds. So you just basically go by the line. We didn't have to sign in. The representative spoke to the person. They said, sit right down. They did my fingerprints. I just had to verify all the information was right. Took maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and we were out of there. So your MBI clearance has to be valid to apply for your 13A visa for 6 months. The MBI clearance is good for 12 months, but you have to have at least 6 months left on that clearance. So we got that done today. So now they're going to do all the paperwork. We have to get our new ACR card, which comes today because we just did our 6 months, right?
Yes, we had to go down and pick up that
up today
from the immigration.
From immigration. So it takes about 30 days to get that MBI clearance back. They will pick it up for us. So there's another thing we don't have to do. We don't have to go down there and sign back in, wait in line, and say I'm here to pick up my MBI clearance. They do that for us. And then I believe the last step is with the 13A visa, we do have to take one trip to the district office for immigration that is in Cebu. Or we could go to the main office that's in Manila, but Cebu is much closer. So the good news about that is we would have to make an appointment. We would have to go sign in, go to Cebu, wait in line, and then get fingerprinted. They have to take my photo, and then that's it. With JRC Services, they will meet us there because they have representatives there in that office. So we will make an appointment with them. They make an appointment. So we're fast tracked. So we meet the representative of JRC Services. They take us in, and they said they just push us right through. I'll just have to sign a document. They take my photo. I do one more time with my fingerprints. So I do have to make one trip to Cebu, where if I didn't use JRC, it would be 2 trips. And if anything was not in order, and you don't have the documents with you, it could be multiple trips. And I asked that very question, and they said, no, usually it's 3 or 4 trips to Cebu. Can you imagine that? And now we only have to do 1. So is it worth 20,000 pesos for them to do all that paperwork, going to the attorney? Now I don't have to go to an attorney and pay the attorney. That's part of the fee. Find 2 people to sign documents for us on our behalf. The MBI clearance was just a push through. That was really quick. We would have been there for hours. 20,000 pesos is not a small amount of money. It's about $400, $375. But they do all the heavy lifting for us. So I think it's worth it.
It's well worth it.
Yeah.
It's just you do not want to deal with the hassle, just, at least with them they have all the connection within inside.
Right.
But with us it's not worth it for us to do
Right.
ourselves.
And we're busy building a home and everything. So we got all the paperwork done. So now we'll see how long it takes. I know it takes 30 days to get the MBI clearance. And then it's going to take probably another 30 days to get that certificate that our marriage is registered or approved or validated for the Philippines. So once all the documents come in, they put it all together, they submit it to immigration. So that's another step that we don't have to do. We would have to get everything together, go back down to immigration, get in line, and see if all the documents are together. And if not, we would have to go out and find the documents and come back. They'll do that for us. So they represent us. Their office is right next to immigration, so they just go right over there and take care of it. It gets submitted, and then they said it's about 3 months to get approved. So then, a couple of things. Once it's approved, I don't have to pay that 10,000 pesos anymore every 6 months, so that's good. And then I'm on probation.
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
Yes.
So I'll be a 13A probationary card. My photo will be on it, and I'm on probation for 1 year. So long as I don't do anything incorrectly for 1 year as a permanent resident, then I get the official permanent resident after that. Now, you do have to reapply after that 1 year. So, that's not a great thing. But I will get my 13A visa here probably in the next 3 or 4 or 5 months. I will be a probationary 13A visa holder. And then after 12 months, I'll have to go back in to JRC, or we could just do it ourselves, but I'll have JRC do it. Reapply, and then that probationary period goes away, and then I'll have my
Permanent
final
residence. Yes.
permanent visa, 13A marriage spousal visa. So kind of long-winded, but I think the moral of this story is, you guys can extend your Balikbayan visa all the way up to 3 years. You guys might not have known that. So that's number one. And then number two, try to find a service that comes highly recommended. So you're going to have to do your homework if you're not in the Dumaguete area, and find a service. It's well worth the hassle. We had to sign 4 different documents, 5 copies each. So that's 20 signatures that I had to sign my name, and Wilma had to sign her name.
Yes.
So that's 40 signatures today. And you would have to do all those documents yourself. And they typed everything. And they had that all done by the time we went from JRC's office to NBI and NBI back. They had it all done and printed for us. And we were only gone 5 minutes there, less than 5 minutes at NBI, and 5 minutes back. So let's call it 15 minutes. We were back in 15 minutes, and they had all those documents, those 40 documents ready for us. And they had us check it and sign it. So well worth it. So that's the long story. I hope that helped you guys. And we'll just do a couple updates today and talk to you guys later. There was a lot of comments yesterday, at least 5 or 6 comments regarding how are we going to power the microwave. So this is all under paper, but I'm going to do my best. So here's where the microwave will be. So if you guys remember, right above the 110, so right up here there's an outlet. There's going to be a 220 outlet up above this cabinet. And it's going to have 2, just like this, 2 220 outlets. So one of them will go to my step-down transformer, and then the other one will go right here to the microwave. So the microwave basically is going to be right on the other side of this, inside the cabinet. And we'll just, on the other side here, just drill a hole to go up, and then drill a hole left, and it will just snake up through and plug right in. So that's where we will be able to electrify the microwave. All right, so building a house, I mean, there's 1,000 things going on at once. And as the homeowner, Wilma and I, we don't always get every single detail of what's going on. It's just impossible. And I don't think the contractor or the foreman or the guys, want us to ask every single question about every single thing that they're doing. So one of the things that I haven't asked, but see how they're not putting the ceiling up against a firewall? And talking to the foreman, it was like, I got to run all the electric. So they did it here, but then they switched. They had more electric to run, and electric ran. But see right here? They did the bedroom, but not here. Well, there's another step, and I just didn't know because no one told me, and I didn't ask. So, they're running all the conduits through this firewall. So the firewall has several spots where there's hole. And I think I mentioned they got to cement all those and waterproof. But there's another step on top of that. I'm very glad about it. they still have to put a rubberized paint, rubberized or epoxy. I don't know the exact name, but they called it a rubberized paint to go up the firewall across the top of it. And you guys know it's about what, maybe 6-7 inches wide, and then down the other side. So this home has 4, they call it firewalls. When you're up on the roof, it just looks like it's going to block the wind to the metal roof, right? It looks just, it's walls that would block the wind, and that was by design. But there's another step. They put that waterproofing on that cement when they rendered it, but there's another step of putting a rubberized cement or rubberized paint in and around that. And the guys are waiting to get that done before they put the roof up, or the ceiling up, because that's cement board. And what they don't want to have happen, and you can see daylight right there. So there's still some work to do there. So you can zoom in, see daylight right there? So rain could come through that. It's a possibility. I think my finger made it go a little blurry, but you can see it right there. So they got to get that all plugged up and then put the rubberized paint all around the firewalls, the 4 firewalls, and then they'll feel confident about putting the cement board up against the actual firewall. So that's the reason why they're doing the centers. So I just wanted to explain that.